Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to System Basketball Zoomcast. On today's episode, we have assistant coach Aaron Levin of Grinnell College. Coach Levin is a graduate of Grinnell College, 2014. We're fortunate to have him today. He's coached this in the system as he's the present assistant coach there, and he also played in the system. So we're going to be able to ask him some questions about it at both levels. Coach, what was it like for you playing in the system at Grinnell?
First, I want to say, Mark, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be featured on a Zoomcast with you in system basketball. I feel so fortunate to have played in the system. My high school coach, my high school program was more of a traditional. I'm a bigger guy at 6'5.5", 6'6" in the media guide. So, I was really kind of slugging it out on the post and on the block. And playing in the system, I just felt a ton of freedom. I actually think, and Coach A could probably tell you is correct, that I developed an allergic reaction anytime I crossed the three-point line on offense in my 4 years playing in the system. But it was just to have the freedom and to be able to have the creativity to play in the system. I learned that there's no one correct way to play the game of basketball. I think that was the largest takeaway I had from my experience playing in the system. And on top of that, just being able to have fun, be a blip on the schedule for your opponent, and be able to put up big numbers. It was just incredibly fun, and it's 4 years that I cherish, that I will cherish for the rest of my life.
So coming from a traditional setting, what was the hardest part that you had to adjust to play in the system?
That's a good question. So for me, I think it was more about the defensive side of things. Obviously, getting shots up, in 12 seconds or less, which is what we were trying to do, was definitely an adjustment. But for me, it was being on the defensive side. We and I still think we qualify a good defensive possession is we have one really good chance at a steal, and the other team is getting a shot up or turning the ball over, changing possession in 10 seconds or less. And for me, it was being okay with getting scored on in a 2-on-1 situation, and not really beating myself up about that. And I think what playing in the system really taught me was the value of having mental toughness, and trying to keep everything in perspective. From an offensive standpoint, as a shooter, definitely having games where you're going 4 for 14 from the 3-point line, but every time you put one up, you've got to have the confidence that the next one's going down. And then on the defensive side too, just, being able to gamble a little bit, getting burned every once in a while is fine. I'm sure Coach A and Dave would tell you that I was burned a little bit more than just once in a while, but, being able to just buy in and really have fun, that was, to me, was the biggest adjustment was, developing that mental toughness.
As a player and being on the team, what was the biggest criticism that you'd hear from your teammates or you had about being in the system? Was there anything really? I mean, it's ingrained in Grinnell, so it's probably an unfair question since they ran it. You're known to run it, so you know what you're getting yourself into. But what if any, criticisms would players have?
Yeah, it was definitely tough. I didn't experience, anything of that nature during my career. For me, I think my viewpoint of the system as a player is maybe with a more of a rose-colored lens, so to speak, because I was one of the preferred scorers. I was getting a lot of shots up. I was scoring a lot, and so for me, it was more of a positive experience. But I know that none of that would have been possible without a lot of the guys who were doing the dirty work, setting screens, hitting the offensive glass hard, really locking up on the wing defensively, and just kind of creating havoc and, causing chaos. And so, for me, I don't know if I ever really heard criticism. It was just, we're not playing fast enough. We're not working hard enough. And, I was fortunate to be a part of 4 teams where we really valued each other, and valued playing at the highest effort and highest level possible. And we held each other accountable. So that was a lot of fun for me.
What would you say about the criticism that I hear about players that they felt like the shifts are short and they don't get into a flow. Like, I hear that, or coaches say it, players say it, and because they're only out there. What would you share about that?
Yeah, that's definitely a huge adjustment, is playing in shifts, especially if there's a lot of different substitution patterns that you can have in the system. That's definitely one of them, is the quick shifts and the fast shifts. I didn't really experience that long of an adjustment period, and I think it sounds worse than what it actually is once you are starting to make those adjustments. To me, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks. It took about 3 to 4 weeks to really adjust to being on the court for a short period of time before coming right off. And after that, you just kind of get used to it. I mean, it becomes muscle memory. And to me, I think that's what it's all about, is, developing kind of that mental toughness, and having that ability to be able to be on the floor, give 110% while you're on the floor, come back off, catch a breather, and then just jump right back out on the floor.
Okay. What was it like playing for Coach A? He's such an innovator. I think he was ahead of his time with the way the game is played now over the last 4 or 5 years. And so with all these system analytics of shooting nothing but 2s and 3s, and dribble drive, and how he created it with the help of the people developing the formula for him, the students and stuff like that. What was it like playing for him?
I just feel so fortunate and so grateful to have had the opportunity to play for Coach A. Just a brilliant basketball mind that, I think he gets a lot of criticism for developing kind of this crazy way of playing the game of basketball. But like you said, he was ahead of his time. I mean, when he started running the system in the early to mid 90s, the 3-point line wasn't necessarily used like it is today. And he was all about getting shots up and getting threes up and not really messing around in the mid range. And so for me to just play for him and learn from him, I mean, I just feel like I know the game so much better now, having played for Coach A. I see the game from so many different angles, and from so many different viewpoints. And for me, I just think that's, I'm just so fortunate to have played for him. He was very direct. He, demanded high effort at all times. And he let you know if you weren't playing well or if you weren't working hard enough, he let you know. But to me, I just always wanted to do right by him, just because he was giving me the opportunity to play at the next level for 4 years, but also because of how brilliant he was, and just the impact the system had on me as a person, not only on the court, but off the court as well. And so I just always tried to, play up to his standards, which were pretty high. And not sure I always did that, but I still just feel, so grateful to have played for him for 4 years.
So you played traditional, and then you went to the system. What were practices like for you switching to that? Were they funner? Were they more upbeat? How was a system practice for you compared to a traditional where you're slugging away doing shell drill and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, it was an absolute blast. The environment in practice, having practices really mimic what we were trying to do in games, in shifts. It's short, it's high energy, it's high effort, and then you're off the floor, then you're done. And so to me, being able to see those two things kind of mirror each other were really great. And practice was so much fun. I mean, how many programs can you look at around the country at all given levels, boys and girls, who shoot 100 3-point shots at the beginning of every practice with music blaring? It's just incredible. I mean, I don't understand how it would be difficult to not have fun in that kind of that kind of situation. And so for me, I had so much fun. I don't miss shell drill at all. I didn't miss shell drill in my 4 years at Grinnell. As important as that is when you're developing a defensive system, and I think it is an important drill to have in high school. It is a good developmental drill, but I didn't miss it as a college player. I'll just put it like that.
So Coach Belf, who coached at Grinnell, you know as well, has come on several of the system clinics that we've done and tells us some stories about Coach A, about the historical 3x5 card. Is that true? The practice plan is on a 3x5 card?
So it's funny that you asked that question. I personally never once saw Coach A during my playing career have a practice plan.
Okay.
And now, and one of the differences between Coach A and Dave is Dave, 97% of the time, if it's not the day before a game, we have a practice plan. And I once tried to hand one to Coach A, and he gave me a look that I will never forget. And from here on out, I will always offer him a practice plan if I have one in my hands. And he always just kind of gives me that same look because it just wasn't his style to believe in practice plans. But if he was using a 3x5 index card, that would not surprise me. And even that, I would think would just be a little too definite.
I think Bob was just saying that's how simplistic the man was and how simple the system is. Sometimes I think we try to make it more things, and you've been on system clinics and we ask questions, and my joke always is someone asks a system question and we're supposed to shoot the ball in 12 seconds. We're supposed to do this in 12 seconds, but the person answers it in like 12 minutes. So when it's a system question, so for something that's get up and down, shoot, do this, do that, it's very, everybody wants to analyze it. And me personally, since I haven't fully gone to it and I will be, we want to find a reason not to run it. I think that's why we analyze it so much. We want to find out why it won't work. So you mentioned Coach A, Coach and Coach Dave. How has it changed in your opinion? Has the offensive schematics changed a little bit under Dave Jr. as opposed to Coach A?
Yeah, I think it has a little bit. For example, we when I was a player, if we were going up against a man-to-man defense, our right wing was running through every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And now under Dave, where I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think where he started to retool was after his 2 years coaching the Reno Bighorns, which I know was a really valuable experience for him. And now sometimes we don't run the right wing all the way through. It just depends on the personnel and on the point guard. And so that's definitely a big change for us. And I think things have slowed down just a little bit, not a whole lot, but just a touch in terms of getting off shots quickly. But it's still run and gun. I mean, it's the incredible thing about Coach A and Dave is they literally share a brain. Coach A could say something or ask Dave like what he thinks about this, and I know that Dave is going to give the answer that Coach A has in his mind about that exact question. And the same is if you flip roles, and if Dave is asking Coach A a question, he knows that Coach A is going to, I know that Coach A is going to give the answer that's in Dave's head. I mean, they're just so similarly minded, which is great because to me, it just opens my eyes because I know I would not have an answer to that question that would even be remotely close to what they've got going on between the two of them. And so that's why I feel so fortunate being able to learn from them.
One of the criticisms I hear about from high school coaches why they're kind of don't really want to run the system is they don't feel their players like it's a gimmick, it's this, it's that, and they don't feel that their players would be marketable and recruitable by playing in the system. You do your fair share of the recruiting, so and you run the system. So what would you say about that? I mean, I think it's baloney, but
yeah, I think, and again, there's so many variations of the system. Mm-hmm. I know the popular, and this is true for me as well. I coached a ninth grade boys basketball team and tried running the system myself, but our break was more of an LMU break, and we pressed and we ran kind of the 1-2-1-1 press that we run at Grinnell. But we would fall back into a half court 1-2-2, trap in the corners.
Okay.
And so, in terms of guys not being able to develop and marketability and that sort of thing, I really I don't know how much truth there is in that, because a lot of what the system does is what modern basketball is about. If we're on the recruiting trail and we like a kid and his team presses, to me, he's already got he's ahead of the curve in terms of where some of these other guys might be. And offensively, if guys are shooting threes, we kind of like to do that a little bit too. And so I think,
just a little.
Yeah, just a little. I'd say we dabble on the 3-point line.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, for me, I think is there some truth in it's not necessarily the best way for players, I suppose, but really it's all about your perspective and being able to put your players in positions for them to succeed, not just in the system, but in any position that they might be in.
On the flip side of it, you guys have left Grinnell, gone on to play overseas professionally. I believe one or two guys may have played for Dave at Reno. At least one player did.
Yeah, one did. Yeah. That was cool, especially because Dave was going in and he had some professional basketball players looking at him sideways, and his own teammate Keith Chamberlain, he was able to keep him around for long enough to play pretty well and kind of show guys and explain different concepts. And so I know that was really valuable for Dave to have someone among the player ranks who could help him kind of explain things.
The schematics, like you're saying, everybody kind of does their own offensive part of it. The defense, from what I'm learning by doing this for the last 3-4 months and been studying it for years, is defensively is pretty standard across quote unquote system purist type teams. But hardly any do this, what I would call the Grinnell break. You're send the two-man through off the staggers or the triple. Why do you think it is that is it the reading? Is it guards can't make the pass? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those two things, especially. Unless you have a very special point guard who's able to attack down the middle of the floor, middle third of the floor at full steam, with someone running through and being able to read a defense and being able to make those passes through traffic. I just think it really that's a really high level skill for a high school player to have. And so are there point guards out there who could make those plays? Well, yeah. And I hope we can find them and they come to Grinnell. But if they're making those plays and reads at the high school level, chances are they're not coming to Grinnell. They're going somewhere else where they're probably having their education paid for, and rightfully so if you can make those plays and those reads at the high school level. Yeah. But I do think that it is very difficult for a high school point guard to be able to make those reads at such a high speed. And that's why I think it's more predominant to have the LMU break at the high school level for system teams.
What I'm seeing too is I think a lot of it, Coach, is the advent of positionless basketball, where everybody can handle it. Everybody's supposed to be able to deck it. Everybody's supposed to be able to stretch it. And more people are playing 5 out or even 4 out, 1 in, drive and kick. And I'm probably leaning that way. I like your guys' aspect a lot, but there's certain things that I think I'll have a hard time to get my players to learn the pecking order. And then I think the hardest one is, and you guys are great at it, is the miss shot. Like getting them to figure out who screens for who, where the LMU break or even Olivet's attack that Doug made famous and get into dribble drive. I think that's what you're seeing most teams do.
Yeah.
And then you got to, of course, this is my joke with everybody, is you got to throw a ball screen in there. Otherwise, you're not a coach. Because the NBA runs it, so we gotta put the ball screen in, right? Otherwise you're not coaching.
Sure, unless you're running a 2-man game like I did with Jack Taylor, and 9.9 out of 10 times you're not going to get a pass. He's just going to find a way to shoot it or throw it to the other side.
So since you dropped his name, what was it like playing with a guy that in that part of it when he got 138?
To me, incredible. Um,
I know he doesn't like to talk about it. I heard so. He feels bad. Like he's such a humble guy, from what I understand, and he kind of, you probably know this more than I and anybody. He hated it.
he's incredibly humble, and I know he's fortunate. He feels fortunate to have had the opportunity to not only score 100 points in a game once, but to be able to do it twice.
Yeah.
And for me, as someone to be able to play in a game, with a guy who scored 100 points and have that happen twice in 2 years. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I said it, we were fortunate enough to have Fox Sports come out and do a story about Jack and about the system. My senior year, I had probably 100 times more hair on my head than I do right now. And so I said it. I mean, it is incredibly, I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to play in 2 games where a guy is scored 100 points, 100 plus points. And you think about all of the basketball history, not only in the US and the NBA, but all over the world, from when Dr. Naismith invented the game, and how many people have scored 100 plus in a game. And I was part of 2 of those games in 2 years. And I'm sure there's the percentage of players who have gone through games, played through games where they've been a part of a 100-point game is 0. I'm sure that percentage is at least 98, if not 99%. So I know Jack, he's an incredible guy, extremely humble, like you said. I still give it to him every now and then. He's got a young daughter, and I'd ask him every now and then if he needs someone to teach her how to pass. But he's just a great guy, and he was a heck of a teammate and an incredible basketball player. I mean, to be able to score at his height, and he could get a shot off over anyone.
What was he? What was he? 5'10"?
Yeah, he's 5'10", and just be able to create a shot for himself, an incredibly fast, quick first step. Yeah, he was just a marvel. I'm so happy that he was on my team and not on another team I had to play twice a year.
So, what advice? Like, I mean, I'm sure you get these calls, and you're the video guy. I think that has to send out stuff to people. I think that's your role now. Bob told me that used to be his. Since you're the poster system program. Since you've done it for years, Greenville's starting to get pretty popular themselves. Coach Barber got it rolling there too. What advice would you give to people that are seeking to possibly run the system? I mean, I'm sure you get these emails or calls quite frequently, and you're the one, I think, designated to handle those.
It depends. Sometimes I get them. Sometimes Dave gets them. Sometimes Coach A gets them still. And the advice that I would give is it's an incredibly fun way to play the game of basketball. It's a way that you can give a ton of experience and positive moments for almost every person on your roster and in your program. And to me, if you're running it, I know Keith Parsons runs it at the middle school level. If you're running at the middle school level, at the high school level, even at the college level, you're able to touch so many more lives and keep so many more players engaged and involved, rather than just having an 8-man rotation or 7-man rotation. For us at Grinnell, we dressed 20 guys. That was true when I played at Grinnell. You dress 20 guys, 18 of them are going to get in the first 10 minutes of the game, more often than not. And if we're doing our job and we take care of business early, all 20 guys are getting in the game. And we were speaking before you started recording. Former teammate of mine, Brent Lemoyne, who's the class of 2016, passed away from a fight with lymphoma. And one of the videos that we found, Mike Curta found it, was his senior day. He buries a 3 in front of our bench. The bench goes insane, rightfully so. It was the only 3 he hit all year. He wasn't really playing that much by that time in his career. And the next possession down, he's running around screening like mad to get one of his other seniors a 3-pointer. And to me, that's what the system is all about, is you have players working for each other, working to get each other moments like that, and really caring about each other on the floor, but also off the floor. Because I know there can be a lot of negativity between two players, especially when you've got a guy who's taking a bunch of shots and someone who's on the flip side who's either getting in the game but isn't in a featured offensive role or is on the bench for most of the game. And so the system allows players and teammates to have those special moments with each other and be able to work with each other and for each other. And to me, that's really the essence of the system.
Well, you're the first assistant I've had on. Everybody else has been like either a head high school coach or a head college coach. What is your role for Grinnell as the assistant? I mean, what are you responsible for?
Yep. So I do. I handle a good chunk of the recruiting and finding guys, and then Dave and I work together when it comes to recruiting. But the biggest responsibility I have is to just build as large of a board as I can, and then Dave and I kind of work through sorting out who's at the top and that sort of thing. In terms of basketball, if we're talking about game day responsibilities, I'm in charge of knowing the sideline out of bounds and baseline out of bounds plays of the opposing team, what their press breakers are going to look like. What's really important for me is some teams, they'll come in, we'll maybe say we're playing them second time through the round robin, and the first time through they ran a press breaker. The second time through, I've started, I've got the board in my lap. I've got the marker, and so we get a bucket at the other end. I'm standing up trying to write out, whatever their press breaker is. And I'll show it to the guys on the bench to just say, hey, here's what they're doing with the break. It could be what we prepared for. It could be something entirely different. And so that's really kind of my big responsibility, is to draw up their press breakers, all of them. I'll go into the team room at halftime or the locker room at halftime. I'll write them on the board so the guys can look at them and talk about how they're going to defend it. I also have marked down in my pocket the season box score for our opponent. I've marked down who are their best three-point shooters and who are their worst free throw shooters, just so we have an idea, end game scenarios, one end or the other. Who should we be fouling, and who should we be making sure, and who should we be aware of that's on the floor who can knock down a three. I've tracked personal fouls for different players, and make sure, I let Dave know, even though it's said by a PA guy and it's flashed up on a scoreboard, it's probably up there for minutes until something else happens. I make sure to just let Dave know if guys have 2 fouls or 3 fouls and that sort of thing. Outside of that, Dave might come down. He might, ask my opinion on things, what I'm seeing. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to take care of all the little stuff to, make sure that we're rocking and rolling.
So speaking on the foul situation, you guys you're running your shifts, and a guy gets two or even 3 fouls in the first half. Does he continue to run through his shift if he's scheduled to be on the shift chart, or do you guys adjust it?
Yeah, it depends. It does depend. Some guys we have, we have subs ready, and so we might have that player take a shift down, just to get deeper into the half, and not put them at risk. Some of our guys, we tell them they get 1 foul in the first half, and that's usually all of our point guards. We tell them you get 1 foul, and they do a pretty good job of not necessarily being overly aggressive on the defensive end. In the first 20 minutes of a game, no foul is worth it to take it intentionally. And so in our minds, if you're in a situation and, you're in a 2-on-1, there's no reason to foul. Just do the best you can to, disrupt their rhythm or disrupt the 2-on-1 break. And if we get scored on, we're going to go get a 3 at the other end in less than 12 seconds. So that's usually how we handle fouls, but it really depends on the personnel and where we're at in the game.
So you coached as a freshman coach. That must have been, what was the hardest part of installing it with freshman boys?
Oh man, there were so many difficulties in installing it at that level that was outside of their age group. So we were in a school where we had two gyms, and there was also there was a boys program and a girls program, and so we had to practice before school, and so we were having 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. practices, and so that was the tough part was getting to school every morning and expecting these guys to be able to practice at a high level, and so installing it with them, the pecking order is really was the toughest part. Kind of instilling in guys, you don't want to take away confidence in guys, but at the same time, you want to teach guys that they have to defer. And so trying to figure out, who to put in what position to be able to make sure that they were getting the ball more often than not. It was a ton of fun. We went 9-16, but we averaged over 50 points a game, which I think is really tremendous given that we were playing either 6 or 7 minute quarters, and the league play, if you could even call that, we were going to like some complex with 4 courts, and they wanted all the games done in 30 minutes, but they were playing 8-minute running clock quarters, and you're just like, well, you can't get the game over in 30 minutes if there's 32 minutes of game time. And so it was pretty discombobulated and disorganized, but
So it was like a summer league jamboree.
yeah, pretty much, but except it was in the dead of winter, and you're trying to just keep guys' heads on straight, and they didn't have a whole lot of time to warm up between games, so because they were always running behind schedule. So that was difficult to be able to have. But I was fortunate enough to be in a position where we had an administration, we had an athletic director who told me, schedule as many games as you can, and we'll make it work. We'll make sure you have buses to get there. We just want these guys to be able to play and get the experience. And so that's why I feel fortunate being where I was, that we could play a 25-game schedule, where I know some of the other schools that we were playing, their only games were probably those league games where they were kind of being rushed through. And so I can't really complain too much because I had that support behind me to be able to play games in a more controlled setting.
Besides your guys' 100 threes and stuff that you guys do to start practice, how do you guys develop the shooters that you guys develop, or is that recruiting?
It's a little bit of both. I think Dave is incredible when it comes to developing shooters, and I'm still trying to learn from him. But the keys that we have are, trying to eliminate guys who dip the ball on their release. If they're catching it and they're bringing it down before they go back up, at the high school level, you might be able to get that off, but at the college level, it's probably not. You're probably not going to get that off. And so we're trying to develop guys who and work, kind of emphasize with them, because we can't work with them in the off season, emphasize with them that they're catching it here at their chin and they're going straight up. And then from a footwork standpoint, we still, emphasize our guys using the bunny hop. That was a transition I had to make from high school to college. I was a 1-2, step and shoot. And Coach A said, we shoot with the bunny hop here. And I said, yes, we do. And I jumped on the on the shooting machine. And I was just, working my tail off to just kind of develop a rhythm with a high release, with a bunny hop. And those are tough adjustments to make. And I think it's really up to the player to dedicate themselves to, making those changes and developing in that way. If that's what a coach is looking for, that's what you've got to do. And not all of our guys bunny hop. It's tough to bunny hop on a lateral pass, but on an inside out pass, we really want our guys to bunny hop. Is it the most accurate footwork? Probably not, but it's the quickest way to get a shot up. And for us, we're trying to get 94 shots up, at minimum in a game. And so, for us, we want shots to go in, but I can tell you from personal experience, as long as you've worked on and developed and chipped away at being comfortable catching and shooting off the bunny hop, it can definitely be accurate.
Grinnell's known for offense. you've probably heard this criticism of you guys in every system team in America that you don't play defense. So do you believe the system is more defensive generated or offensive generated?
Wow, that's a good question. And I'm going to do the Switzerland thing and say I could see it both ways and remain neutral. I will just tell you one story. I had a great uncle, and he was a huge Connecticut women's basketball fan. Loved the UConn women's teams. He lived in Connecticut and would go to games regularly. And I think he saw me play one game in my Grinnell career, and it was at Monmouth. And he was there with my dad. And after the game, we had won. And after the game, my dad introduces him to Coach A. And, he says, this is my uncle. And he's a huge UConn women's fan. And Coach A says, wow, that's really great basketball. What do you think? And my uncle says to him, well, you don't play any defense. I think you need to play more defense. And Coach A has the box score, and he pulls it out and he shows him, and he goes, we forced 38 turnovers. Is that not enough defense for you? My uncle just looks at him and goes, ah. So I do think it's there is a lot of the defense we play. I mean, we're forcing teams to play faster than they want to play. At least that's our goal. And I do think that helps kind of keep the pace of the game going. But I don't think it's as cut and dry as it's an offensive. Is it more offensive or is it more defensive? I think it works hand in hand, especially when things are firing on all cylinders.
Would you have any ideas for with people getting able to get back and train a little bit at certain areas in the country, but like with no passing rules and stuff like that? Ideas of shooting things? Would you just be doing spin and catch stuff and doing attack moves and ball handling to try to develop system habits? Any ideas? Like if you were coaching your freshman team and you were able to go, but you had those guidelines, how would you, and you were going to run the system, what would you be doing in practice?
It's incredibly tough, especially if you can't pass the ball to each other. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I can think of that we've had some guys do on their own, something that when I was first going into Grinnell, I asked Coach A, Coach, what drills can I do on my own in an individual setting that are going to help best prepare me to be successful as soon as possible? You called it the Kentucky drill, where you start at half court, you spin it to yourself, you really focus on a quick 1-2 first step, and you're attacking down the right side of the floor, and you're either going in for a 1-foot layup, a 2-foot layup, dribble moves off of that into 3-pointers, and then you get it, whatever shot you do, you get it, you dribble it out to the corner, you spin it to yourself, it's that same 1-2 quickness, and it's a speed dribble back to half court on the other side, so you can turn around and attack from the left side. And there's different ways that you can play with that. But to me, and if there's a dribble move involved, so for example, if it's, do an inside out right hand dribble and go finish at the rim, right? You do the inside out dribble at the 3-point line, and then you're doing that inside out dribble kind of halfway back to half court on the other side. And to me, it develops going quick. It develops, you're working on different scoring moves. But it's also a good conditioning drill, especially if you're pushing yourself or you've got someone in the gym who's telling you you're not going fast enough. You're able to work on basketball skills while also working on your conditioning as well. And I think in an individual setting with no passing, that's a really good way to really work on your game and develop.
Yeah, a lot of the guidelines right now are no passing. Everybody has to use their own ball, and you've got to still try to maintain social distancing. So you do what you got to do. And my guys were fortunate to do it, and didn't hear many complaints about not being able to play 1v1 or 5-on-5 or 3-on-3. There was smile, ear to grin, doing a lot of the new stuff I've listened to from you guys, Dave, Barber. We had music. We were blaring it. We were doing a lot of spin catch series. I think Coach Kurta gave me that document that has it was 2 different workouts, 45-minute workouts that I think he got from Coach A. perimeter one, and then a mid post. I think it was designed for Vinny. Um,
Sure.
so I think they got it from Coach A. So he shared it with me. So we incorporated some of those drills. They were designed for passing, but we started just doing spin it and go chase it.
Yep. Sure.
We did one that you can probably think of that thought was decent. We were like at the volleyball spiking line on the other side, and I had them throw it out, spin it, and they had to run and chase the ball to the trailer spot and then shoot a three. So it was
Yeah.
they're simplifying like a pass to themselves. So I'm trying to be as creative as I can and get some work in and shoot the ball. Like you said, they were drenched. They had never shot the ball so much in their life. So they told me they were sore. I'm all, your arm? Because the ball weighs that much, but
Right. Right.
they're glad they're back. So I'm one of the few schools that have been allowed to do it. So um, what has changed? Is there a lot of things that have changed over the years? Or are you guys pretty true to just system? Just schematics of offense have changed, or have you guys changed anything that you try to do defensively? Have you gotten more conservative defensively, more aggressive? How's Dave changed with that?
That's a good question. I do think there have been some changes, but the biggest thing is our personnel over the last 3 years. We have, which was not true when I played, 6'7" and 6'8" guys who can protect the rim. And a lot of our changes have been based on teams in our league are starting to adjust, and they're starting to get comfortable in doing in different concepts against us. But the one thing that where they've struggled to adjust is us having length and athleticism at the back of the press, and where sometimes when I was playing, I wasn't a shot blocker. I was more of a get scored on or figure out who was going to be out of control and take a charge. And now we've got these really bouncy, lanky dudes who can get up and protect the rim. And then on the flip side, offensively, if there's a defensive breakdown and they slip to the rim, we can find them with a bounce pass, and they can dunk it. And that definitely helps our momentum in those ways. So I think our personnel has changed, and we've had to change a little bit with our personnel. But that I think having that length and athleticism in the G League for Dave was really important and valuable for him to see how much of a factor that can be in the system. And it's something that we've kept recruiting for, and trying to find those guys who are really long and who can really jump and protect the rim.
I joked about the ball screen. Do you guys incorporate that more since his Reno days?
I think we do it occasionally.
You had it in regardless. Like if they bumped you to the outer third, you have your 2-man game. So
Yeah, it's up to the point guard to call it too. I mean, we've got our point guards are, I think our point guards are really good, and we will. It's up to them to really call a 2-man game, or for a 2-man game. If we see it from the bench, we might say, hey, let's next time down, if you don't have anything right away, just call a 2-man game and let's just throw something different at them, and just kind of being able to use the ball screen more as a curveball. But I do think what Pacific is doing and what Rhodes did with the ball screen offense in the system, it's already incredibly tough to guard. And if you can incorporate it in a system team playing that fast and causing the defense to have to think at another level, not just how fast you're moving, but being able to have to defend ball screens at a very fast level with shooters all over the floor, I think it's just invaluable.
do you think anyone's ever going to try running the system with like Mike D'Antoni 21 offense, the pistol actions?
Well, I tell you what, if someone can get that going, watch out. That person's going to be pretty successful. And I do think I do think there's room for it. But again, like the system has evolved in so many different ways, and to just see it work at so many different levels, the men's and women's game, I just think that's great. And so many people have been creative in kind of developing their own concepts off of the base system. And so to me, it's really exciting. I do think there's so much value in running the system. And I do think it's the most fun way to play the game of basketball.
Let's tap back to the high school part of it. I've asked this question to everybody is, you did it in high school. What do you think would probably be a good roster size for high school? I mean, we can't recruit. I know D3 and the level that this is mainly done at is enrollment driven, and you have large, like 17, 18 man rosters. But a lot of times in high school, they'll tell you we can only get 15 uniforms, or whatever the case, or you even have restrictions on how many kids can suit. So, what do you think is a good number, or minimum number that you need to be purist system, subbing 5 in, 5 out, and then trying to do this?
Sure. I do think it depends on your personnel on a given year. I think there's a lot of coaches out there who are, kind of combating those challenges that you're speaking about in terms of roster size, and trying to figure out ways to go 5 in, 5 out. I know you at one point when you ran something similar to the system, you were having your posts sub each other out automatically, which I think is beneficial. We've tried going offense, defense at a certain position, at the front of the press, just to kind of save legs that way. So there are different ways to be creative in subbing. I do think, and it all depends on what your limitations are, and budgetary limitations are, and what your administration is telling you can and cannot have. But I think 12 or 13 would probably be the minimum number. I think if you can get 15 to 18, then you can just find ways for guys to get in. I know it's tough at the high school level without being able to recruit, like you said, to be able to find 15 guys who can really contribute in a game. I experienced that kind of difficulty with my 9th grade team. And so I tried giving them 1 out of 5 shifts. So if we just called it 1, 2, 3. And so we would go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And just that third group was a little bit weaker. But I knew they were guys who were going to play hard because they were fresh and they didn't really have an excuse to lay off the gas pedal. And so at least they could come in and run around and make the other team think while some of our guys were getting a break on the bench to be able to come back and kind of run things the same way. So that's my long answer of saying, probably 12 or 13 would be the minimum.
Like I told you, no system answer is short. So
you said that. That is true. And here I am, 3 minutes.
Like if it was a flex question, they'd be like, yes, no.
Back, downstream. Yeah, there you go.
Now I lost my train of thought. What is it looking like for you guys for next season? Recruiting done? Guys looking for what's the squad looking like? What do you got returning? What's the forecast?
Yeah, so we only graduated one senior, who was he's one of the smartest basketball players who I've ever been around. And he wasn't the most athletically gifted, but anytime we would pause the film, he would always be in the right spot. And that's incredibly valuable to have someone like that on the floor. But we have just about everyone coming back. We have 7 incoming first years. I think if we're fortunate enough to have a season and it's healthy and it's safe for everyone to be able to compete, I think we have a chance to really make some noise. And so we're done with the class of 2020, which is we now consider the Grinnell College class of 2024, which is really exciting. And we're bringing in a lot of a lot of talent that's really gonna, I think is going to have successful careers at Grinnell for the next 4 years.
How is that like recruiting right now, Coach?
Well, Mark, I've this is I guess we'll call it my 3rd year of recruiting, so to speak, at the college level. And I just thought I was getting the hang of it after 2 years. And now we're dealing with a pandemic. And, to me, that's just it's been incredibly challenging. There's very few basketball tournaments happening around the country. There's very few we go heavily for recruiting basketball showcases, high academic showcases. There's very few of those happening right now, and I think there's some they're going to try to have in August. And so it's been challenging that and Dave and I have really have to try to be creative in what we're doing. And so that's been good because I'm only adding tools to my tool belt and how to be able to recruit successfully in all different facets. So
are you doing the virtual tours?
We're about to start doing we are about to start doing some virtual home visits. We're working on getting those scheduled to hopefully happen early mid-July. So yeah, those will be fun. It's all about networking and being in touch with coaches and finding and being in touch with recruits and really just trying to see who can send you film, I guess, right now of an AAU tournament. But for us, the real challenge is being able to watch a guy in person, and that hasn't been able to happen yet, and I don't know if it will happen. And so
2020s are done. So you're off to 2021s.
Off to 2021s, yep. And we've got a board, and Dave and I are talking about it, and we're in touch with these guys, and so we're building 2021s, and with all this downtime, we should probably start focusing on 22s, and but we'll see. It's all kind of fluid right now. Was someone used that word for me, and I think that's a great way to put it. Everything right now is extremely fluid. So.
Do you feel, Coach, that you're a system coach for life?
Oh yeah, and I think that drives my marketability down a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
But
you're labeled as a system coach, right?
But I'm not going to hide it either. I'm going to tell people that I'm a system coach, and that's what I plan on doing. But yeah, I am a system coach for life. I tried going the high school level. Right before I came to Grinnell, I was the varsity coach of at the same school where I ran the system for the 9th grade team.
Okay.
Prior, and I had a lot of pressure actually to go to the system. The school principal was very much a system fan. The athletic director went to Lake Forest, which is one of the schools in our conference, and so our principal was all about running the system after the AD told him about Jack scoring 138 points. And so he wanted me to run the system as a varsity coach. I told him, if I'm not winning in 3 years, then you can get what you want. I'll run the system for you, no problem. But I didn't want to run it because our best players were post players at that point, and I didn't want to flip it on their heads because they had a chance, I thought, to play in college, and one of them is actually playing. He's went the junior college route, and he's going to play. Hopefully, he's going to play at Purdue Northwest, I think is where he ended up signing a Division II school. So hopefully he can play, but I'm a system coach for life. That's it. I'm done. Lock me in. You can put it on my tombstone.
So my joke nowadays is everybody has the thing, get better 1% every day. The system coaches are probably 1%. I mean, you coached it in high school. Were you the only school doing it?
Yeah, and Mike Curter ran it for a long time down at Eisenhower, at least on the boys' side. And then once Vinny graduated high school, I know Mike stepped down so he could travel, do as many of Vinny and Nick's games at the time. They played together for 2 years at Grinnell, and so I know it's picking up a little bit of traction on the girls' side. In Illinois, I know Zach Keene is running it. And so that's exciting, just that it's going to happen.
I would tell you, based upon me doing the clinics, that it's way more interested people on the girls' side than the guys' side. And me, if I ever went to the girls' side, I don't know if I'd ever hit the half number of threes because I think the press would get me too many layups. I don't know if I'd be able to generate the threes because I honestly think it's like when Doug Porter went to Coach A and asked him, and the answer Coach A gave him, I think it would even work better on the girls' side. Coach Glenn's showing it. Coach Bertini at Westfield State, real successful. Both those programs at running it, and now Coach Mondello at at Gwinnett Mercy.
Yeah.
So, um, so people that don't know, I do system basketball clinics, and we've kind of stepped away from them, but we're going to generate up more system basketball coaches Zooms. The plan is for the month of July on Wednesday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time is we're going to do more of a roundtable format so that we're going to pick out some topics and discuss system basketball. So it'll probably be more like-minded people in there, coach, not necessarily people needing system advice at the remedial level. They probably understand. They probably bought the book. They probably watched a Grinnell game. They've maybe been on a system clinic or whatever. But it's good for us to come share out with some of the other system coaches. So any other coaches that will be listening to this recording, it'll be Wednesday nights. You can go to systembasketball.com to sign up. Coach Levin will probably be there on a few of them. He's already been to a few of them this summer with us. And I want to thank you, Coach. Like any emails or any correspondence we've had, anything that I've ever asked from you guys, you've been great to me. I know I took Bob's vision of the Yahoo group and kind of made it into the 21st century with, I remember, I think you were in the room when this all generated, where we were in the chat room.
Yeah, I think I was too. He had just put me on the
And I'm sitting here going, we're not even in an AOL instant messenger room. We're like in it's like CompuServe chat room. I mean, you're too young to know what CompuServe is, but I'm like, can we bring it to like Google Hangout or Zoom and have like, or FaceTime even, and me, and I can't believe how many people are interested in system basketball. I knew its popularity, but it kind of blew up. So you guys were a part of that. The Run and Gun Yahoo group. We've had Coach A on a couple times. We've had Dave on. We've had all of them on. And what's awesome about it is you guys come back to listen. So it's not like, and you guys are system coaches so far, the most giving, and I just appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you coming out today. I want to wish you guys luck, safe health, and hopefully Grinnell has a great season. And I know through my Twitter and my stuff, if I can do anything to help spread more of the system basketball to people, that's what I will hope to do, because there's not too many young guys like me and you that are on the system. Most of the time, you see them as an old coach. Not the young guys running it. You got myself, you got you got Coach Peterson, you got Coach Lunt up at Pacific, Coach Miner at Pacific. But some of these guys like Coach Barber, Coach Porter on the older side, Coach Bertini's younger, Coach Glenn. So us young guys got to keep the system world going, and live Coach A's dream of how high do you think this could go, Coach? What do you think's next? I'll leave it with that. That'll be our last question. How high can someone go? We saw Greenville hit 200. What do you think someone can average in a season?
Man,
Can they get to 140?
that would be something if a team could average 140 points per game in a season. I know Greenville's gotten close.
Maybe 135, I think, is where they're.
What I was thinking too was 135 a game is just incredible. And so it's a testament to the buy-in. And it's all about, who's buying in, getting your teams to be able to play hard, play fast. You've got to have some special games in there, some really high scoring affairs, to really kind of push your scoring average up. And you've got to be in a league where someone plays fast, and everyone's playing fast. And I do think it's out there. I think 135, a game in a season is really tough to beat. But I'm excited to see people try, and that's really all you can do is just play fast and see how many points you can put up on the board.
And maybe one day we'll see it in the NBA.
Maybe we'll see. I hope it makes its way there. That'd be fun. I'd like to see it at the Division I level.
Yeah.
I know Coach Baucom at Citadel is somewhat running system stuff, and he's kind of giving credit to Coach A, and to Dave for kind of helping him with his philosophy at Citadel. But I would like to see it at the Division I level with the pure go with all those athletes on the floor. And I think it'd be a ton of fun to watch. It'd be super entertaining. You wouldn't have to worry about selling tickets. I'll tell you that much.
No. Thanks again, Coach, and good luck to you guys, okay?
Appreciate it, Mark. Be well. Thank you.
All right.